introducing Citlalli Anahuac, our speaker today, one cannot be succinct. For the sake of time, however, I won't be able to tell you about all her work as an activist, as a poet, a performer, or a YouTube personality with over 7,000 subscribers. By the way, you can check this talk on YouTube afterwards. Time also means that I won't be able to list the many awards, the fellowships, the honors that she's earned, some of them for a project that we're going to hear about today. So instead, I'm going to focus on introducing Citlalli, the historian. She earned a BA in history, graduating in 2016 as summa cum laude, walked off the stage with her diploma, turned around, went straight to King Hall, and returned as an MA student, which she just completed her MA in history last year. I got to know Citlalli as an undergraduate when one semester she enrolled in every course I took. And like the good researcher she is, she interviewed me about my method, my background about Indigenous history in early Latin America before deciding to take the course. So since then, I have observed Citlalli's very deep engagement with basically anything and everything that's either written, performed, sung about Indigenous women of Mexico. And it's precisely her decades-long knowledge of the field that she's so committed to, as well as her undergraduate and graduate work that led me to suggest, why don't you write a thesis? So today, Citlalli is going to tell us about that process, the timing of it, the insights, and the struggles, if I might add, of the whole research process and what it entails. And so today I'm very happy to present to you Citlalli Anahuac. Welcome back to King Hall. And the thesis that she wrote, you see the title here, See What the Siwak Saw, How 16th Century Nahua Women Shaped and Monopolized Sacred Power.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. That was an amazing introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. You don't understand. This is like a dream come true. So I really thank each and every one of you for being here. Some familiar faces, which I love. And just to let you know, I am filming this for YouTube. I believe in democratizing education, so I believe everyone should have access to what we research. So, to begin, the title is See What the Siwak Saw, How 16th Century Nahua Women Shaped and Monopolized Sacred Power. Siwak comes from the Nahuatl language and means woman. So just to kind of get you familiar, and the way this is going to go, I'm going to do about 20 or so minutes, 30 minutes on the research, and about 20 minutes on the process of writing a thesis in about 6 months. So bear with me. Some of the concepts that I integrate into my research and that I use throughout my chapters come from the Nahuatl language, being that I do want to emphasize and centralize the Nahuatl speaking experience in the Spanish invasion. So first and foremost, Siwak means woman. Nahua, contemporary, means the Nahuatl speaking people of Middle America, Mesoamerica, Mexico. But the way that I'm integrating it is I'm taking a particular interest in Mexica, Tlaxcalteca, and Colua women. As far as land and demography, I'm looking at what is known as Mexico. But in taking it a step further, I'm trying to honor the way that Nahuatl-speaking people at that time called the land, which was Sema Anahuac, the land surrounded by the waters. And lastly, this is a concept that I integrated. The last term is ahkomana. Ahkomana is disruption or disturbance. That's a concept, so they're not just words I'm bringing in, but I'm using them to represent ideas and to represent an intervention to what 16th century Indigenous women, how they have been viewed, studied, and interpreted. Hello, come on. So my thesis this is straight from the research paper, okay? I want to try to put it in synopsis. So the thesis is 16th century Nahua women monopolized different aspects of their culture in order to establish their leadership and autonomy, grounded in the foundational cosmic view that placed the female sacred power as the root of political and cultural references. So in essence, I am arguing that far from being submissive indigenous women that simply did what we're told, that they actually manipulated and monopolized those positions of culture and knowledge, preserving and creating within their culture. Now, before I get into that, I wanted to kind of give an example of why I'm taking that stand. I came across David Carrasco, who is a very, very renowned historian, philosopher, theologian, and a lot of the writings that I come across indigenous women, they describe indigenous women as following rules, right? They were told, and they did. They were directed. They were told to go here, they went here. So a lot of that, interpretation of their actions really robs the indigenous woman of agency and of her own understanding and her own actualizing her own intentions for whatever reason she had at that moment. Some of the primary sources that I look at, as we know, Florentine Codex, Letters of Hernán Cortés, Historia de las Indias de Nueva España from Diego Durán, Codex Mendoza, Codex de Yeriano Remensis, and Historia Chichimeca Tolteca. So, method. What is method? It's the way you approach a historical topic. It's the way you choose to interact with primary sources. How are you going to tell this story that has motivated you and given you this passion to revisit, right? So the method that I'm taking is using an interdisciplinary approach that incorporates anthropology, archaeology, and linguistics to help us understand the different layers of meanings at this time, especially as it impacted, interpreted of Nahua women. And some of the people that I really, really lean on, historians like Marisa Fuentes, who says that we should write a history about what an archive does not offer. Historians like Kamala Townsend, whose work really works to dismantle the dehumanizing narrative that has survived 5 centuries. And lastly, Lisa Sosa, whose recent scholarship really looks at how indigenous gender dynamics trampled over the patriarchal model. So this movement, this shift in history and the retelling of indigenous women is really exciting to see, because they're really breaking away from a lot of the traditional approaches to understanding not just indigenous women, but women in history. Theory, I'm not sure if some of you are familiar with Trujillo, who looks at history as a product of power. Philosopher Membe, who really questions how archives are produced and what's the cultural apparatus in which they are created from. And lastly, theorist Aníbal Quijano, who looks at knowledge as a production that validates Eurocentricity as the ultimate model of truth. So as you can see, they all have something in common, right? And the commonality that they have is challenging this traditional narrative, challenging the triumphalist view of conquest. And it's important to honor them, and this shows how history really does intersect with theory, it intersects with anthropology, it intersects with language. So it's important to try to get a 360 view on the historical people that you're looking at. Instead of going through each chapter, this is a quick breakdown, a summary. My thesis is 5 chapters. The struggle of how to put them all together, I will talk to at the end of this talk. But first and foremost, we start off with chapter 1. Nahua women. Now what woman? Again, the play on words. The Ahomana, or the disruption. Chapter 2, women as creators and keepers of society, wombs, caves, and matrilineal societies. Chapter 3, keepers of society, domestic agents and warriors. Chapter 4, women, power, and the production of knowledge. And finally, the conclusion. So you are able to access my thesis on ProQuest, but if you guys can't access it for whatever reason, I can personally email you the PDF. So follow up with me and we can talk about that. Okay, so there's a lot of research, a lot of examples, but I wanted to choose, and thanks to Dr. Lee's guidance, the most important, the most passionate ones, the most vital ones that I came across. And so as a history major, throughout my process, it is very isolating, but it's also really important to seek out other historians. In this particular case, what I'm about to share with you was inspired by the art historian Raquel Rojas. She's also a Citlalli student. She has a master's in art history. And in seeing her presentation and her interpretation of Mesoamerican art inspired a deepening of my analysis. So what we're looking at is Aztlan Chicomosto. The Aztec, Mexica Aztec, had this origin story. It's the importance of caves, the importance of Mother Earth, which is what we have here. And after looking at her presentation, after speaking to her, she actually makes a connection between the uterus and the tree of life. Seeing her introduce that concept right away encouraged me and inspired me to look further. We understand that caves are a very human phenomenon. Caves and the spaces have been used throughout time. But in particular, I was interested in finding out what's up with this matrilineal society. Why matrilineal? Where is this coming from? I could not find the answer. So part of the arguments that I'm making is that it's rooted in this. And so my analysis, I came across this image, right? It's a multi-fetal, pregnancy, gestational sacs. And I'm looking at this image and I'm saying, wait a second. You see the lining here, it's in the cervix. You see the lining here, the bump-like substance. And so I started imagining, okay, we're saying they come from caves. There's this concept of Mother Earth. So if it's a cave, it's the womb of Mother Earth, then anything that's inside must be children, must be babies. And so this is part of what I have analyzed. In anthropology, they have studied caves, in particular in the Americas, and they said that it's the way that they materialize cosmology. And Aztlan Chicomosto, as I'm showing you here, the 7 caves are actually, my argument, 7 gestational sacs. This belief system was used to reinforce matrilineal lineage. That is the argument that I'm making based on that analysis. Other images, I'm coming across these images and I'm saying, this particular image here is from Duran, and it's about the battle between Tlaxcalteca and enemies, and obviously it's very impacting, right? You have women who are, squirting milk from their breasts. They're on the rooftops. They have weapons. They're running. And so it was really hard for me to find a historian or someone that said, why? Why? What's behind that, right? Some people say, oh, they're just, out of frustration. They're just like, but I'm like, I don't buy the frustration. I don't buy it was just something that happened in the moment. What I argue is that in many of the cultures of Mesoamerica, women are celebrated as warriors when they give child, when they're in labor. So those women, and as we can see by the hair, that hairstyle means that they're married. The fact that they are squirting milk means that they're recent mothers. And so what I'm putting together is saying that sacredness, the fact that they're seen as warriors, they have a heightened sense of power, a heightened sense of sacredness, and that's how they demonstrated it. And that's part of the analysis that I think it's important, because these aspects we're not going to get by a visual image, nor the textual sources. So what I'm doing is saying that ultimately they may not have known the science or the microbiology of all this, but symbolically, I argue that they were actually using their power, their sacred female power, as breast milk as a weapon to symbolically fight off the enemies. So using their own body and their own milk as power. And lastly, the last visual source I want to talk about is La Pintora. This image comes out in Codex Theyeliano Remensis, and it's really, really important. It's really important because it captures a woman scribe writing, right? And it actually says, La Pintora. So what we understand about Mesoamerican culture is that La Pintora, the painter, the Tlacuilo, you're not just painting, right? There's knowledge. Words are actual images. So for someone to be painting, it actually represents their status, it represents their education, it represents a position that is very much highly valued in Mesoamerican culture. And so I came across a great historian, his name is Jose Rabasa, and it blew my mind that what I was thinking and imagining and breaking my head about, he actually hit it on the nail. He said, why do we assume that all Tlacuilos, scribes, were male, right? So when he said that, it just lit up a light in me, and I said, absolutely. That's a shift in how we understand history. Just because we don't see images of women doing the production of knowledge, painting, doing all this, that doesn't mean they were not present. That doesn't mean they were not doing the same thing. And taking it further, if we're looking at the complementary model, right, that's used in a lot of Mesoamerican cultures, they say it was a complementary society, right? Men did this, women did this, they participated, there was a balance between both. Well, if we're using that argument, then I argue there is a female aspect to every male status. There is a female equivalent to every male, whatever it is. If it's a scribe, as we know, there are doctors, there's writers, and so this really challenges us to interpret the Tlacuilo, who many of the time has been gendered as male. I wanted to mention, I'm not going to get too much into it, but I wanted to mention the textual sources of women that I also incorporate into my research. These are 3 women that we don't know by their name, but they are present in the archive. And they matter, and I'm going to explain why. Number 1, the woman who alerted Tenochtitlan on La Noche Triste. And the Florentine Codex, there is a moment that is described that as the Spaniards are getting together and they're trying to flee out of Tenochtitlan, what happens is that this woman is gathering water, she sees them and starts telling them, they're leaving, Mexica, the Spaniards are leaving, they're getting out. And so they start alerting, other people start letting the rest of the city know, and what happens, the Spanish are attacked along with the Tlaxcaltecas, and it's a huge battle. This woman, I tried to find her in other secondary scholarship, I could not. And some people could say, it's not that important, we don't really know her, she was just mentioned. I argue, it is important. Those little mentionings of women, even if we don't know their name, even if that's all it is, that should be used as an example of what is revealed about that culture and the gender dynamics. Number 2, we know of Malinche. There was an indigenous woman who was part of a planned ambush against the Spanish, and she actually saw Malinche when she was away from Cortez, and she tells Malinche, come with me, we're gonna rescue you, we're about to ambush the Spanish, right? So that interaction we know of through the letter of Cortez. We don't know her name, we don't know what particular group she was from, but we have an encounter of agency. We have a woman who's following her agency to be with Cortez, and we have a woman who's showing agency saying, we're gonna fight them, come join us. And that's important. And third, we have the example of the woman who, according to the Florentine Codex, one of the battles that was happening with the Spanish, she got really close to the Spaniards and was throwing water in their faces. Again, there's no visual for that, but that to me is important. Getting close to a Spaniard, an indigenous woman at the time, throwing water in their faces, I don't read that as an act of desperation. I don't read that as an act of, just get away from me. I read that as an act of her trying to invoke the powers of Chalchitlique. And if I had more time, I would get more into that. But that's what I'm talking about, using anthropology to fill in what the imagined world was, what her frame of reference was as an indigenous woman. So that is an argument that I make, that she wasn't just throwing water, there was a cosmological view that was fueling those actions. Super long conclusion. So at the end of this research of this, it's about 100 pages of my thesis. What I want to get into is why. Why did I do this? What's my contribution? What do I want to contribute to the field of history? And not only that, to the interdisciplinary approach to history. And most importantly to me is to contribute to the shift, to contribute to a new way of not just creating a new narrative, but making something inclusive and understanding that there is a purpose for each narrative, that not one is more important than the other. And by using interdisciplinary approaches, it enriches your own understanding. There's things in writing, in history, that could be answered by anthropology. There's things in anthropology that could be answered by linguistics. And so as a history major, this is some of the richest approaches and methods that I learned here in Cal Citlalli. Because at first when I started, I felt that all I was gonna do is try to read the textual, try to read letters, try to read correspondence. But how do you do that with an indigenous culture who does not use the alphabet? How do you counter a narrative when you're not using the same tools of knowledge as the authoritative narrative, right, of Europe? And so that's a challenge that many of us are facing, because we're saying we want to contribute to the dismantling of this narrative, but to do that is very challenging because we have to look at different aspects, and it's tiresome, but it's worth it. And as a poet, I could not finish my thesis without writing a poem. I was nervous about it because I have never seen a poem written in the thesis by the actual author, but this is my thesis about this. This is my poem about this work. She is an earth all to herself, the cave between her thighs, the underground chamber of the beginning, taming chaos with the juice of her breast and of her uterus. Strength, she is closer to God. See through her eyes as she confronts and laughs and gathers her bones. She knows who she is. She made her way home in old ink to cause shifts, disrupt the earth, disrupt the songs of truth. Ah, Pomana. That's a really quick summary of the thesis that you can find. And to end that portion of my talk, I have to thank my advising committee. My advising committee is Dr. Lee, Dr. Ashin Martin Asgari, Dr. Ford, Dr. Weil, the department chair. I also want to thank Dr. Stroll, Dr. Flager, Dr. Tua, Dr. Covarrubias, and Tlasugamati. Thank you to my ancestors, my academia sisters, and my close circle of powerful friends and warriors. It's really important to have a team of people that believe in you, because as I'm gonna share with you in my next part of my talk, there's gonna be moments where you really feel that it's impossible to reinterpret, to challenge something that's been studied for so long. We're talking about 16th century Mexico, right? There's been so many books, so many interpretations. Who are we, right? Who am I to go back and say, hey, you missed this. Hey, think about this. But the power of academia and being with surrounding people and a team that supports you is that you can, and you are capable. Second portion of the talk is the process. Okay, so to let you guys know, I was doing the 3 areas, right? I was gonna do comps on modern Middle East, I was gonna do it on colonial Latin America, and I was gonna do it on US history. By this time, I've already finished my first comp. I'm almost finished, finalizing it. Then I have this wonderful talk with Dr. Lee, and she says, hey, you've been studying Indigenous women on your own outside of academia. You're interested in Indigenous history, particularly Nahua history. Why not do the thesis option? And I was like, it's intimidating. I'm like, a thesis? is me? Like, I haven't even specialized in a particular area of Indigenous history. But after talking with her, and she's like, okay, what do you want to focus on? What is something you haven't done? And I said, I haven't focused on Indigenous women. It's something I've studied outside of academia, but I've never done it. So she said, do that. Focus on that. And that night, this is my Facebook post. That night, I said, okay, if she believes I can do it, the department believes I can do it, I'm gonna step up and fulfill this. I don't know what I'm gonna get myself into. So the process was February through August 2018. So for those of you thinking of doing a thesis, for those of you who are contemplating that, I want to give you some tips and suggestions that may help you make that determination, may help inspire you, encourage you. This was my life, right here. This was my life from March 15, 2018 through August 9, 2018. I work full time. I am an activist. I am a poet. There's a lot of things happening politically, but I have this thesis. I want to go to the protest. I want to join this. People are calling me, hey, we need you over here, we need you over there. I have this, right? And so to me was, I need to believe in this so much that I know I have to sacrifice. These months, I had to be fully focused in order for me to get here, in order for me to submit my thesis. So this is my personal schedule that I created with Dr. Lee. And Dr. Lee was crucial in this process. I'm meeting with her every month or so. She's giving me feedback. We're talking. I'm talking to other professors. I'm talking to other students. So this is what really helps, is developing a schedule. Hold yourself to those deadlines. Be flexible. Speak with your advisors. They're gonna help you. Research and writing. Now, you have to understand, I have been studying Indigenous women, but not like this. This is a whole other level. This is academia, this is research, this is anthropology, linguistics. So what I'm doing, I'm researching and I'm writing at the same time. I didn't research for a whole year and then now I'm ready to do my thesis. This was a very challenging for me, very challenging aspect, because I'm researching, I'm looking at secondary scholarship, it's making sense, it's not making sense, the time is ticking, I have to submit this. Where do I prioritize myself? And writing, right? You're constantly writing, you're constantly changing what you're writing. As you get further into the research, there's gonna be things that do not support what you started off with in chapter 1. Chapter 2 and 3 are very different. You're finding things that contradict your own research. And so it's constantly, editing, rewriting and rewriting. And then, it's my last semester of graduate school. I did not know about special collections. I thought special collections was the fact that Citlalli, they host the biggest archive of Florentine Codex and different other collections. I thought that's what they meant by special collections, right? And as a working student, I was like, man, I don't have time to go and to a different aspect of the library. But when I made my way to special collections, it completely blew my mind. You have access to some of the most, out of print, some of the most important research documents, primary sources, and you're able to sit there for hours on end, put on your gloves. It's very particular, so you're gonna go, don't take water, don't take food, wash your hands. It's a whole culture, right, of history. And it's my last semester. And I was so like, man, I wish someone would have walked me in here and said, this is what you gotta look at, this is what you need to do. And so when I was looking at that, it was so powerful. It was so powerful to sit there and do what historians do. They sit there with gloves, they analyze an image, they analyze a text for hours and hours on end. And meeting with Dr. Lee, a lot. I'm very thankful for her time. She sacrificed time with her family, sacrificed time from rest to be able to support the work that I was doing. And the challenges, I'm gonna be very transparent with you. I'm very open. I want you guys to understand the struggles behind this, right? The challenges was, Dr. Lee, I can't do this. The imposter syndrome. Am I qualified to do this? I mean, I don't even know CMS properly. I can't really cite things like, I was struggling, right? And so I was like, okay, I keep researching, I keep going to the library, I keep researching too. The challenge was, when do you say, okay, I'm done with the research, all right, I'm ready to wrap it up? It's hard, because the more you research, you're going in there deeper and deeper and deeper. You're like, oh, my timeline's ready, I have to do chapter 3. You're like, wait, I haven't done this. But you have to really be clear about what you're arguing. And anything that doesn't support you, you have to let it go. You have to let it go. I have a lot of drafts of my quit emails to Dr. Lee that I was like, all right, Dr. Lee, I appreciate your time. You know, everyone's been amazing, but I can't do this. Like, I have drafts and drafts that I did not send, right? But it's so exhausting. Again, working full time, doing this. I did have like 3-week break from school. I work at a school. But it's real, you guys. It's real, but it's the actual merit of it, once you get through this. And yes, writing a thesis in 6 months. Are you crazy? That was my thought, right? Even Dr. Lee was like, you know, you could push it for fall. You could push it for maybe another year, you know, but I was committed. I said, no, I signed up for this. I want to do this. This is possible, right? And of course, your mental health. You need to prioritize your mental health throughout this whole process. Solutions, a lot of solutions, right? Oh, and then I went to Mexico City amidst everything because I needed a break. So that's me walking down a protest in Mexico City. This was in July. So solutions and growth, there's tons of solutions. Solutions is go to special collections, become familiar with the material there, study at the library, reach out to other historians. I reached out to my colleague, Raquel Rojas, to other professors. A lot of people are not gonna understand you because they've never been through this process. So it's very, very isolating. I can't talk to some of my friends about it. I can't talk to my partner about it. They're like, oh, it's just school. I'm like, you don't understand. This is a thesis. And sacrifice, you have to sacrifice. I'm sorry, Dia, I can't go to the barbecue. I'm sorry, friend, I'm missing out your baby shower. I'm sorry, but it's okay, right? Because there's gonna be more. And honestly, when I started understanding that research is therapeutic, it starts working in your favor. It starts making you feel good about the decision to miss out on the barbecue, about the decision to be here at the library the whole weekend, right? There's something that happens to your own growth, to your own clarity as a historian. And you have to write. You have to write and rewrite. One example, I met with Dr. Lee for chapter 2, I think. I met with her, I'm excited, I have like 20, 25 pages. I'm like, all right, Dr. Lee, there's my chapter. Tell me what to do. And at the end of the conversation, it ended up being 2 chapters, completely, disarranged. And I was like, oh man, like, that was a curveball. I said, wait, I worked so hard on chapter 2. I thought I was good, like it looked good, beginning, primary sources. But she, as an obviously historian who has been doing this for decades, she saw the bigger picture. And she was focused on the rhythm of the thesis rather than each argument per chapter. But that was the night that I think I was gonna send that quick email. But it's really difficult. But again, also, this is my suggestion, do not give yourself a plan B. I know that sounds rough, but I said no. She said, we can extend it, we can do this. I said, no, I can't. I'm in too deep, this needs to be done. I want to finish 2019 with my, with my degree, with my thesis, with Project Match, which I'll get into right now. I want this year to validate all my struggles. I want to wrap it up in 1 year. And take a quick break if you have to. I went to Mexico City, Dr. Lee was like, take your laptop, you could work on some notes. I was like, I don't know if I want to take my laptop. But I did, I don't work on it as much as I should, but there's a connection because what I'm looking at in Mexico City, what I'm studying connects, they talk to each other. So, thesis was finally done. I actually submitted it a day before it was due August 9th. I submitted it August 8th, 10 p.m. It was accepted August 16th. this is an award I received. In the middle of my research, Dr. Lee had a great idea that I should present my research for the RSCA Oral History Award contest. And I was like, oh man, I have not even done yet. But I entered, I presented a 10-minute oral history of my research. At the end of that, I went to the library because I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna win. I just presented, it was a good experience. Next thing, 2 weeks later, she sends me an email that I won. And then it didn't dawn on me, I was like, oh, we're all winners. Maybe we all won because we all presented. Then I looked at the printout and it said, no, you won, oral history. So, yeah, so you guys, you have to understand, sometimes we undermine ourselves. Sometimes we think we're not as important because we're up against these monsters of history, but just to let you know that it's important what we're doing, and we never know how it's being perceived, right, by someone else. So what happens at this whole process, I'm applying for Project Match. Project Match is a teaching internship from Los Angeles Community College. Since I walked here inside this campus, I said I want to teach community college. That's been my idea since day one. I want to teach at Citlalli College. I want to be part of that culture. I applied, about 500 people applied for that internship, only 42 get accepted. I get the notice, I'm accepted, I'm there. It finishes December 13th. It's been an amazing experience. You learn about pedagogy, you learn about critical responsive teaching, you learn about so much, everything that happens behind the scenes of academia. And graduated May 21st, 2019. I do speaking engagements, I continue my activism. I have, like Dr. Lee mentioned, my YouTube. I have a project called Decolonizing Academia, in which I interview students from Cal Citlalli, whoever would like to contribute, that are creating this shift and that are pushing for this new narrative and an inclusive narration of history, especially of people of color. And I don't know, I'm really contemplating the PhD program. I know Dr. Lee had mentioned it, other professors have encouraged me, but I wasn't ready. I want to teach, is what I told them. I want to teach, I want to be at a community college, but I'm considering that. It's not for sure, but it is somewhere in my vision. And just, yeah, so this is from when I spoke in South LA at a high school. Talked about, the power of education. This is part of the Decolonizing Academia project that I have, and my best friend made me this mug. I think she was trying to do it in English, and then she had it in A, but it's beautiful, regardless. And I wanted to end with this. Being ourselves in a world where everyone wants to remake us will always be our greatest challenge. The disapproval of others is a powerful deterrent, but hardly a strong enough reason to be less than who we truly are. If we want to be happy, sooner or later, we will have to assert our right to be accepted as ourselves. Leo Buscaglia. And I say that because my journey in academia, since I started, I was told, history is too conservative, you're not going to be able to study what you want to study, it's very whitewashed, it's very Eurocentric, it's going to take decades until it actually starts shifting and new narratives are going to be allowed to be explored and covered. But I listened to that with a grain of salt, and I continued on. And I met great professors, I met great colleagues and friends who are actually part of this together, right? We're all creating this shift in whatever discipline you're in, and I want to let you know that it is possible. That the people outside, they have a certain view of academia, but the changes that are happening inside here are only going to be enriched by our own contributions. So we can't be, intimidated and say, oh, well, that's not for me. I don't see myself reflected there. I don't have, no. If we're not in here and creating these shifts in these spaces and this, challenging of this traditional archive, then it's not going to happen, right? And so, like I said earlier, I'm very grateful to see you all here. I'm very honored to be here today and share this space with you because it's powerful. What you guys are doing in academia, in the field of history, is revolutionary. It may not seem like that when you're looking at your syllabus, when you're looking at the grading, right? It's long nights and weekends, but there's a shift and there's a movement that is happening, and you guys are part of it. And so I want to encourage you, if this is the option you want to take, a thesis, you can do it. You can do it. I can give you my personal email. I can send you my thesis. I can give you some support, whatever I can. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful accomplishment. So I wish you all the best in your endeavors and your whatever you're going to do, right? Your graduate, your PhD. But we're doing it, you guys. So let's be proud of ourselves. Thank you.